Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, Monkey Wrench. I'm Kelly, the monkey with the wrench. Back in the shop today. An unexpected machine came up. It is a John Deere Z335E. There was a note left on it. This is a regular customer who I've worked on his machines in the past, and he left me a note and a bunch of bushings, and didn't even say what they were for. I drove this thing around. The front wheels, the spindles, they barely want to turn. They're kind of getting locked in one place. They're squeaking all over the place. My guess is that it's going to be the bushings for the top and bottom of each of these front wheels. So I'm going to jack this thing up and take it off, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so basically the way these work, they have to be greased and tight and not wobbly in any way. Otherwise, every time you go to turn around, the wheels are going to kind of want to lock in one place. Makes for a pain in the butt getting around. It can actually double the amount of time it takes you to cut because of all the backing and turning and everything you have to do with one of these. So here's what we have. John Deere part number M167267. Now the customer picked these up himself. I think he went to another town to get them from the Deere dealer. And basically, what you're looking at here, get behind the camera and see what it looks like, is just a plastic sleeve. Okay, that's all it is. Very lightweight. It just takes up the space between the housing here and the spindle. So I'm going to show you how easy it is to get this off. Just like that. And all you have is a bolt and a washer. And it threads right into your spindle. Now if you can see, if you look on here, you can see that it's kind of dirty and, you know, kind of messed up. I'll probably take some sandpaper to that. And right on the inside here are those two bushings. One goes in from the top and one goes in from the bottom. So in order to get them out, because we're replacing them and we don't care, just take a hammer and a screwdriver and see if you can work them out. And that's it. Okay, that's the old bearing right there. And what happens is there really should be some grease in here, so I'm going to put a little grease in there before I reinstall it. And I brought out a bigger hammer with a wider face. Even you don't need a maul like that or a baby sledge, but you need something wide enough, and I'll probably use that block of wood to get it on there. So let me go ahead and get the other one out. Hopefully it comes out just as easy. And basically these just get worn, you know. It's just plastic on steel, and it's just a spacer. And so when they're constantly being drug on, they just get worn out. And then there's a space in there, okay, and then what happens is your spindle will wobble in there. So let me get some grease and I'll be right back. Now I really can't show you the amount of wobble that it has because it's so negligible. I can feel it wobbling, and I just drove around and cut my yard real quick, and I could tell that the wheels were locking up and they didn't want to turn, and you know, they just kind of get, when they don't turn perfectly, they kind of get kinked inside of here. And that's all that happens. So I just have some grease right here. Nothing big, no big deal. I shouldn't put my foot underneath of it in case the jack doesn't hold. Thankfully, I have yet to drop a zero turn on myself, and hopefully I can go the rest of my life without doing so. Alright, so a little bit of grease. Any kind of grease will work. Not a big deal. Some people prefer not to grease them. I do. Now, grease will catch dirt and dust that goes up in there, and that's why people say, oh, you shouldn't use grease. But for me, See, with the grease, it kind of just goes right in. Just tap it down till it's flat. Do the same thing with the next one from the up. I would rather have it greased personally, and they're not expensive. I looked online just a few minutes ago, and it was like 12 bucks for a set. So if you're doing it yourself, it's not going to be a big deal. Now I'm just going to put a little bit of grease, and my opinion is, yes, grease does kind of pick up dirt and dust, and you know, we'll kind of hold it and cake it in there, but I would rather maybe change them a little more often because it got dust up in there, and know that everything works the way it's supposed to. Then you just slide this back up, put your bolt back in, and tighten it down, and that's it. And now we're greased. All the space should be out of there. We shouldn't have any issue. We're just going to do the same thing to this here side. Take the bolt out. This one's really worn. Take that one out. Get the other two. Now, these do not spin inside the housing. Uh-oh, I'm missing one. I had it. Hang on a second. Now, these plastic sleeves do not spin inside of the housing. I can feel inside of here the grooves kind of where it used to be, and it has grooves on the outside of this, but that's more mainly so that it can compress when it needs to go inside. I just put the grease on the inside of it just to help it go on better, but I always grease the inside of the cup where the spindle comes through, because I just like to have things greased. It stops rust, and you know, it always helps it move, basically. So you just take that, don't force it until you get it started. Once you get it started, then it's no big deal. Then you can tap it. Make sure it's not crooked, just like if you're putting a bearing in or something. Make sure it isn't crooked. And I mean, this is it. And believe it or not, it is such a pain to drive a zero turn around when the front wheels are kinking on themselves and they don't want to turn, and it'll actually cause your drive wheels in the back, when a wheel gets locked, instead of spinning to turn where you want it, it gets locked in one position, the rear wheel will start spinning in the grass, and it'll leave a big divot in the grass, because it's trying to pull against the wheel that's jammed sideways and won't turn to go where it needs to go. So you can do damage to your lawn, to a customer's lawn, and it's such a pain in the butt just driving this thing around for 5 minutes real quick, cutting the bulk of my yard, just so I knew for sure what the problem was. It was such a pain because it just didn't want to turn. Every time I went to turn it, it didn't want to turn. And I've got 3 or 4 divots in my own yard just from 5 minutes of doing it, because the stupid thing didn't want to turn. So these bushings are very importante. And then you just put it back together. That's how easy it is to work on these front wheels. This is the first thing I did, or one of the first things I did to my zero turn. Mine didn't have the bushings that were on the axle, so the wheel was kinking here and here, and I replaced both of those bushings, top and bottom, and it's such such a difference that it really does go back to being pleasurable to drive one of these around. I love driving my Zero. I love cutting grass. I mean, I honestly enjoy it because it's so much fun to drive this beast around. This isn't mine, obviously, and mine's larger than this. Now, just get it off the jack. And that's it. And now, when he drives this thing around, there'll be no more squeaking in the wheels, and they won't be jamming and locking on him, hopefully. And that's what he needed. So, I appreciate you stopping by. This was a quick video, but an important one. Hit the subscribe button if you made it this far. Punch me in the like button somewhere between my chin and my balls. And see you soon.